The SQL in this video is almost identical to the SQL in the previous video, video 250, but it has the opposite effect. Instead of looking at all the records that have been played, we're going to look at all the records that haven't been played. And once we've selected all the records that haven't been played, we're going to try and pick a random record in order to play things randomly that we haven't heard before. So if we look at the form load, basically we're opening the global connection and then once again calling display play history. So if I right click and do a go to definition, the display history this time has almost identical SQL. It selects all the same fields, except it doesn't select the date and time field, since they're now going to all be null. And rather than ordering on the date and time, it orders on the author name and book name, which in the case of this roughly maps into the genre name and the singer name or band name. And instead of looking for records that are not null, we're going to look for records where the date is null. In other words, we haven't seen this or played this. In addition to this, we have two new global variables, record count and a random class variable called random record, which is instantiated as in the standard manner. And this has to do with the second SQL statement, the count SQL, which does a select count asterisk from virtual CD where date watched is null. In other words, this will give us a single number that's a count of the number of records that we're going to find with this SQL statement. And if you're familiar with SQL, you might be wondering, can we put the count star in this select and get the count? And the answer is yes, we can, but the count will actually constrain this to having only one record. So we'll get the first record with the count, with accurate count of the number of records, but not exactly what we want. We want to get all the records. And then once again at form load, we're just going through and listing all the records, this time all the records of unplayed or unseen. So if we initially compile and run this, you see we get all these records sorted by author and book that are essentially records we haven't seen, which they're quite a bit more than the ones we have seen. Which brings me to the second half of the program, which is the pick random unplayed record button. Actually, record is almost a pun because it's a record in the sense of a record you play, and it's also a record in the sense of the database. But here once again we have string variables for the names, and then another string variable that's called string hit. And we have the MySql data reader MDR, and the top statement is a major part of the secret. In a way, this is a major C# MySql team up, because now that we've got the record count from the form load time, we do select random record, random record.next, starting from 0 and within the record count. So this is going to get a record number from 0 to the number of records. In other words, a random number within the range of all the record numbers. And then on the select this time, it looks pretty much identical to the listing select, but this time we have a ending clause that says limit. And the limit basically has two values after it. The first is a starting record number, and the second is a number of records. And since we only want to pull up one random record, the number of records is just 1. and the starting record is this random value we got with our random dot next, so that we'll select a random record and get just that random record returned by this SQL statement, which is exactly what we want. You're probably familiar with the limit if you've used PHP MyAdmin much. If you go to PHP MyAdmin and do a browse, you'll get a subset of all the records, because there's only so many you can display on the screen, and you'll notice that's because of a limit. It says go from record 0 for a length of 30, and if you go to the next page, that limit changes to 30, record 30 for a length of 30, and so on. So if we compile and run this, and then do a pick random unplayed record, you see the str hit concatenates the author, the book, and the virtual CD. So this is a hit record. We randomly get picked from our total number of records, which I think is around 350 unseen records. And if I press this again, we get a different one, this time Natasha Bedingfield. And I press it again, I get Janis Joplin. Press it again, we get yet another play of records we haven't seen before that are randomly selected from that universe. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a lot, and I'd appreciate it if you'd subscribe.